Welcome to Doing Good by Doing Better, the podcast for world shapers, not spectators. I'm Margaret Rogers, CEO of Pariveda, a professional services firm that helps make potential possible for our clients. On this show, I talk with founders, executives, and innovators who share hard lessons, bold ideas, and real strategies for purpose-driven growth. This episode will offer practical insights you can use this week to solve forward. Because at Pariveda, we know that doing good only endures when we keep learning how to do better. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we pick up where we left off with Doug Conant, founder and CEO of Conant Leadership. He's also the former CEO of Campbell, and his books have reached the bestsellers list on the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. In this Part 2 episode, Doug takes us inside the executive coaching work he's known for, including the personal leadership model he teaches leaders to create and apply in their management decisions. We talk about how leaders get unstuck, how to translate self-awareness into consistent leadership behavior, and why Doug believes your life story is inseparable from your leadership story. Let's jump in. In the Blueprint Bootcamp, you encourage everybody to build a personal leadership model, and you invite leaders to literally put it on the wall and use it to help yourself make decisions right away. And, when you watch people work through that process, and it is a process, if you've never tried to do this before, it is a process. What's something that tends to surprise them most about themselves, and what have you seen change when they go back to their teams?
Well, the premise of this is, that, and this is true of every participant, even you, that you are enough. You are enough right now. You have all the leadership experiences you need to be an infinitely better leader. What we tend to do is we have these experiences and then we move on to what's next. Meanwhile, we put all these experiences in the parking lot of our lives, and we don't go in that parking lot. We just forge ahead. I got new challenges. And everything you need to know is in that parking lot. And so what we did at Hallie, what we do here is we drag you back into the parking lot of your life, and we dig into that. Mm-hmm. And what did you learn? And who had the most profound influences on you? And how do you want to walk in the world based on those experiences, knowing that you are enough right now? And what shocks people is how profound that experience is. In Hallie and also in my boot camp, these people have never spent this much time focusing on themselves.
That's very true.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And thinking about one of the things that you do to prep that is you have people think about who's in your entourage.
Yeah. Big deal. Mm-hmm. Big deal. When I do a talk, often we'll start out, say, I'd like you to think about one of the 5 most important people in your life, the people who had the most profound influence on you. And they all think about it 2 minutes, and then we have them talk about it with their neighbor in the audience. And inevitably, they land on these people who had a profound influence. And leadership, my definition of leadership, is the art and the science of influencing others in a specific direction. And these people had the most profound influence on these leaders. So I said, well, they had a lot of influence on you. Well, yeah, they did. And then I say, did they have high standards for you? And they say, oh, absolutely, they had high standards. Well, did they care about you too? Well, yeah, they did. They had my back. In fact, they were tough-minded and tender-hearted. And, well, how did they treat you? Did they honor you? Oh, yeah, they loved me. Unconditionally. Okay. Well, that way of operating had the most profound influence on you in your life? Well, yeah. Well, if you're ever not sure what to do, my advice is be a little bit more like them with the people with whom you live and work, and you'll start to have a more profound influence on them too. And they've never thought about it. They've never connected those parking lot life experiences to how they show up at work, managing MBOs and lists and all this other stuff. And that's the most eye-opening experience they have, that they discover, you mean I can be human and be a good leader too? I can be tender-hearted and tough-minded? I can serve the enterprise and do it in a way where it's personally fulfilling for me because I'm being more like my grandfather, yeah, you can. And that's where it's like, wow, nobody's talked like this to me. And that's the breakthrough that people need, that I think we all need.
Where do you think leaders who feel stuck in their old story about themselves, where do you suggest people begin?
Go back to your life story.
Hmm.
Do the equivalent. We found a way with my blueprint exercise and in our Higher Ambition Leadership Institute. We found a way so you didn't have to write 50 pages handwritten, both sides of the paper
A notebook paper?
on notebook paper, but there's a way to shorten that experience. But you dig into the 10 most important experiences of your childhood and you find your way to finding these people who had this profound influence on you, who you respected and learned from and grew with. And all of a sudden, you give them permission to sit on your shoulder when you're thinking about how am I showing up for people? It will change how you show up. It will.
Hmm.
And what's interesting to me is this works for everybody. I haven't found anybody who isn't moved to be a better leader by going through that experience.
Hmm.
So if you just think about who are the people who had a profound influence on you, and why don't you try and be a little more like them with others in a way that works for you? Boy, that could be a cool experience. And what we find is that it's more fulfilling because it feels natural. You know what it's like because you lived it. You had the experience of learning from somebody like that. And all of a sudden, your cup is a little more full. So many of our leaders today are trying to pour from an empty cup and trying to lead without, and they don't have the energy for it. That's because they're not leading in a way that's beautifully aligned with the leader they want to be.
Hmm.
They're leading with an image of the leader they have to be, and it's draining.
Hmm.
And we can do better than that. They can do better than that.
Hmm.
Look, if I could survive 10 years at KKR and another decade with Campbell Soup Company in Camden, New Jersey, anybody can do this. I
Yeah.
think I shared with you before this that I've taken IQ tests. I'm disgustingly ordinary. Taken EQ tests. I'm disgustingly ordinary. But when I start trying to show up for people and I think about the people who had influence on my life, I can show up for them in a pretty damn effective way. And maybe that's my secret sauce. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I know many companies pour so much time and money into culture and engagement. And one of the things that struck me that you said before is that, it took time to change culture. It's not something that you can expect a quick, I'm going to do this one thing and culture is going to be changed and I can just leave it. It's a continuous journey.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you went from being one of the worst for a large Fortune 500 company to being such a high ratio of
Yeah.
77 to 1. What helped you create that extreme level of change? Is it time? Was there secret sauce in there that you could point to?
I think it's personal. I can teach all kinds of stuff you would learn in business school. I can teach you the Tuckman team building model and situational leadership model. And what do you want to learn? I can teach it. Your Myers Briggs test and
Yeah.
how you manage your Myers Briggs. I can teach it. I've studied it all. But, what I'm finding is those kind of things, time management skills, objective setting skills, that's all nice and important, I think, in a measured way. But what's being neglected is the person, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And they're not well anchored in who they are and how they want to show up. And so just dropping all these structured things in training and development on them, their foundation isn't strong enough for them to carry those with confidence. And so what I see is the need is what we do, what I do, and what we did in Halley was we're going to help you get incredibly well anchored in the person and the leader you want to be. And then we're going to help you figure out how can I bring that to life within the context of my company.
Hmm.
But it was all focused on you first. And I think most training and development programs give short shrift to the focusing on the individual They're more focused on here are the things we want you to be good at with your skills in our company. And I think that's where they fall short. The leaders that we've trained in Halley have gone on to do amazing things and that I've done in my boot camp. We've dealt with thousands of these leaders at this point. And the point of difference is they are better anchored in who they are and how they want to show up than their counterparts. And I think that makes all the difference.
You often talk about creating a leadership flywheel. And for listeners who may be new to it, can you describe how you see it really working? And then how do you create that legacy that leads to long term leadership when you leave an organization?
Well, look, it's tricky. Everywhere I've left, you have a new leader come in and stuff changes,
Always.
which is, again, why the individuals have to be incredibly well fortified so they can deal with all the change. It's not about what's happening to them, it's about what they're doing for themselves. So, the notion of my flywheel, I do have a leadership model. I'm in the process of making it better, but there's an axle and then there's a flywheel around it. There are four core elements to my axle. At the heart of my flywheel is the commitment to honoring people. And that's part of how can I help and, being present for people.
I love that.
But that's at the heart of it. And then the second ring, second part of the axle is about inspiring trust. I believe Stephen M. R. Covey, when he wrote his best-selling book, The Speed of Trust, had it right. His subtitle is The One Thing That Changes Everything. And I think if you create a high trust environment of Pariveda, it unlocks magic. Okay. So for me, I start with honoring people, inspiring trust. The next thing is embracing a growth mindset, and that's abundance mentality.
I love that.
The work Carol Dweck did at Stanford around growth mindset. It's mission critical. If you don't think you can grow, you won't grow. So you have to commit to a growth mindset. The fourth ring is you've got to be really clear about your purpose and your higher purpose. What am I really here trying to do? And this is an individual, as a team, or as an enterprise. So those four things are four rings around my axle. And then you've got to actually lead change. So then you create direction. There are five things that go around that. You create direction that brings the clarity to your higher ambition. You have a plan. And then the next piece of that is you align your resources to deliver against that plan. And that's not just people, it's time and money too. You get all your resources aligned to deliver the strategy. Then the next part of the outside flywheel, it's about building organization vitality and helping them actually have the energy to go fight the good fight for the enterprise. And there's an order to this. If you don't have good alignment, giving them energy to go fight the good fight is a train wreck. You have to make sure the organization is properly aligned so that when they go take the hill, they're all working together in a way that honors the intended direction. So it's create direction, align resources, build vitality. Then you have to focus on executional excellence. And you got to actually execute the plan you had, and you've got to be remarkably agile with adjusting and dealing with all the issues. And the last piece is then you have to produce extraordinary results, because my flywheel is a results-oriented model, and that's the key. So you've got to produce extraordinary results. And when you do that, magic can happen, and it can happen in Camden, New Jersey. And if a tree can grow in Brooklyn, a company can thrive in Camden, so can anyone else, anywhere else. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. I know we only have 1 minute left, so I have a lightning round for you. And this is going to be hard because you're a really well-read person. What's a book about leadership you often recommend?
Other than mine?
It can be yours.
I don't know. I have a whole library of books, but I'm big on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People still, because it gets you focusing on yourself before you start trying to serve others. And I'm big on Brené Brown's work.
I love her work.
Because I think it's particularly timely now, because great leaders, to be effective in an enduring way, need to be vulnerable so that people can connect with them.
What's a favorite quote you return to in hard seasons?
in hard seasons?
Mm-hmm.
I actually stole there's a sonnet written by Pamela Vol-Starr, but it's reach high for stars lie hidden in your soul, dream deep for a dream precedes every goal. And that's what I'm always doing. I'm reaching high and I'm dreaming about what can be. And I'm not really particularly worried about what is because I know it can be better.
We're just happy that you are continuing to work because you're giving so much back to the community and to the future leaders. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, I admire you and your culture and what you're doing as well. So, I'm happy to be contributing here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Doing Good by Doing Better. I'm Margaret Rogers, CEO of Pariveda, and I hope this conversation offered you a new way to take your ideas to impact. Follow on Apple or Spotify and join us every other week as we keep learning how to do good by doing better.